Hey everyone, and welcome to the first practical video by Cookies and Stream. In this lesson, we'll be applying the theory from the HTML basics video to build our very first web page. I already have the demo open to show you what our web page will look like in the end. This web page will consist of the following: some headings, paragraphs, a table, a form, a button, some lists, a link, and an image. Now for this practical, you'll need a text editor such as Notepad++ or Sublime Text or any text editor you feel comfortable using to write your HTML code. For this lesson, I'll be using Notepad++. To kick off our lesson, you'll need to create a folder in which you'll store your HTML file and the image you'd like to display on your web page. Now you can name this folder to anything you see fit, but if your folder name has more than one word, you need to eliminate the spaces between the words using underscores. Let me save the image. Next up, you need to open your text editor and save the existing text file as type HTML. Now remember to save it to the folder that you've already created, the one that we just created now. So let's name this file index. Now you can name this file to whatever you want as long as it's type HTML. If you go back to the folder that you've just created, you'll see that the HTML file has been saved correctly. Now, my HTML files default to open in Chrome, so when I double click on this file, I will see a blank web page. Now, remember in our theory lesson, we mentioned that the HTML structure should consist of the following. All HTML documents must start with a document type declaration doctype HTML. The document itself begins with an HTML start tag and ends with an HTML close tag. And lastly, the head and the body tags lie between the HTML open and close tags. So with all that said, let's open our editor and write down our structure. Our head tag, it has some space, and our body tag. Let's save our document and refresh. Now you'll still see a blank page because we have not yet placed our content on our page body. But on your keyboard, if you click F12 to open up the development tools, you'll notice that even though the page is blank, its structure has been coded in. So here's our document type, here's our HTML open and close tags, our head tags, and our body tags. Right, let's close this and go back to our web page. Now, the first thing we want to change is the page title or tab name and web page icon, right? Because that globe is not really unique to our web page. To change our title and icon, we'll be making use of our head tags to fill in our metadata. Now let's go back to our editor. I'll be writing in the metadata that we need for our web page, and I'll explain each and every one of them once I'm done. Now, the first meta tag is to define the character set we want for our web page. We'll be using the standard UTF-8 character set for this particular page. The next meta tag is to set the viewport. Now, every website should have this viewport because it gives the browser instructions on how to control the page dimensions and scaling. The third meta tag is to define the description of the web page. That's pretty basic. The fourth meta tag is to define the author of the web page. That's also very basic. The link tag defines a link between a document, which in this case being our web page, and an external resource, which in this case is our image. The rel attribute specifies the relationship between the web page and the linked document. And then the href attribute specifies the URL of the external resource. And lastly, the title, that's the title for a document, or also known as the tab name. Now let's save our file and refresh our page. And we see here that our icon is now showing and the title of our web page has been changed. Let's go back to our editor to add some body content. The first element that we'll be adding to our body content will be headings. Now, completely off topic, when you work on a Word document, there are options to style different headings from heading 1 until heading 7, I'm not sure. But every single time the header number increments or the heading number increments, the heading becomes smaller. Now, that very same concept is applied in HTML as well, whereas H1 or the tag H1 is the biggest heading and H6 is the smallest one. Let's go back to our editor and type that in. We'll be placing our headings in a section or their own specific section. And for this, we use a tag called a div, which is also known as a section of the web page or on the web page. Now, working with divs is really cool because you get to customize that particular section of the page however way you want. The trick here, though, is that to only customize one section is to give it a unique ID. That way you won't customize all the divs in the page. So let's write that in. Div, let's give it an ID, call it headings, and let's close our tag. And now we'll place our headings in between our div tags. I won't be filling in all the headings, so I'll just go straight to 6, being the smallest one. Let's just get that out the way. There you go. Now save your file and refresh your page. Our headings are displayed and the divs aren't exactly visible on the web page itself. It's just the content that lies in between the divs that show. Those ones are the only ones that actually matter. But in any case, let's move on to our next element, which will be our paragraph tags. Let's open up our editor and create a div section for paragraphs. Let's close our div. So we define our paragraph tags using P. Let's close our P tag. Now I make use of a website that generates test paragraphs for me when I can't think of things to say. So let's just get a few paragraphs from the site. Maybe two. Let's generate. Let's copy, go back to our editor, and paste the content we just copied in between our paragraph tags. Right, save your file, close this, and refresh your page. And we have our paragraphs displayed. Now, as you can see, the paragraphs are quite nested, and there isn't really lines in between, or paragraph lines or break lines. So to allow that to happen, we'll be using a break tag or a new line tag or a space tag. I actually don't know what people call this, but it's a break tag to create some breathing room in between our paragraphs. So let's go back to our file editor, and right below the first paragraph we'll have our break tag. Now our break tags don't have close tags, and I have no idea why. So let's save that and refresh. Yay! And our paragraphs have some breathing room. The third element that we'll be coding will be a table. Now, like our HTML structure, a table has a head, a body, and a footer. We won't be working with the footer just as yet, so our only focus would be the table head and the body. So let's go to our editor, create a div, close the div. Let's type out the table structure. So there's a table and close tag. And our table head tag is written as T head. Ooh, let's close our T head. And our body is T body. And let's close our T body. Cool. Now to define our column names, we need to put them in a parent tag known as the table row tag, or in short TR. So table row. Oof. And let's close our row. It's only one row, so we only need one TR tag. And within our TR tag, we're going to have our table header. So we can call this column 1, and we can close our table header. And we have our second table header, and that would be column 2. TH. All right, let's remove the space over here. And next will be dealing with our table body. Same concept with the table head or header. The only difference now is that we'll be using a tag called TD, which stands for table data. So for our table, we could have maybe 2 rows of a table data. So let's define our first table row, right? And let's close our table row. And we're going to have our second table row. And let's close that one. Then here we use our TD tag. And let's write a fruit, maybe an apple. TD. And for the next column, we have another TD tag, and we'll call that orange. And for our next row, we have our first column, data. I don't know, let's call this lemon. Whoa. And our second row, our second column, we'll call it banana. And we close off our body. There you go. Just want to eliminate these spaces. I don't know. When it comes to code, OCD becomes such a real thing. Cool, so we save our page and we refresh. And we have our table, column 1, column 2, and we have our data. Now, the tables don't have any borders around them. And for that reason is because there isn't any styling applied to the tables. We will be looking at styling in our next video, and we'll be using this very same web page to apply styling on it. So just hold on tight. We're almost there. The fourth element that we'll be displaying on the form, on the page, will be a form. So a form is used for user input. And an example of a form, you probably use this in your everyday lives, is if you, for example, log into your Facebook, you have your username that you have to put in and your password. So those input fields are forming part of a form. Now go back to your editor and let's create a new div. Give it an ID and let's call it form. Let's close that up. The first thing we need is our form tag, form, and we need some labels and some input areas. Our labels is basically, what can I say? The word next to the input. So here we have a label, and this label would be for name, and we'll call this label name. Whoa. Label. And now the input for the name. Input type is text, because no name has a number. And yeah, I think that's basically that. Let's add some break tags. And our next Label would be for, say a comment, something that would require a lot of words. And for that, we don't use an input tag, but rather a text area. The rows are for the height, basically, so let's use 8. And the cols, or the columns, are for the width. So let's use 10. And we need to close this one. It's a very stubborn element. Right, break tags. Let's see, our third, what else do we need in a form? Let's say we need a input type of a number. So we're going to have our label 4. Let's write their number. Number, oopsie. Let's close our label and input type. And then break tags because we want some space. And then let's say we want a drop down. Now that uses a whole new different vibe on its own. We use a tag called select. And within our select, we are going to define or add the options that need to be shown on our drop down. And then we use a tag called option. Let's pick colors, maybe, I don't know, red. Let's keep it RGB. Green. And blue. And then we close off our select. And that concludes our form. So let's save our file and refresh our page. Ooh. But yeah, here's our name and our text area, our number, and our drop down. But let's fix this a bit. Kind of bothers me. Let's give it maybe 20 columns. Clearly 10 is just too little for it. Yeah, I guess that's better. Guess you can keep it that way. Just play around with that, yeah, until you find a width that makes you happy. But that concludes our form. We can add some space between our table here because that looks so nested. Yeah, much better. All right. And our next element would be a button because, obviously after you fill in your credentials into wherever you want to get into, you have to click a button that will direct you to that page. So I will show you how to code the button, but it won't have any functionality because to create button functionality, we need a whole new language called JavaScript, right? And that is only going to come after we completed our styling. So for now, it's just basic things. Um, so let's go back to our editor. So let's add some space and a new div, put an ID, call it button. And button, pretty straightforward. It uses a tag called button. And I guess you can just, give it whatever you want. I'll call mine click me just for fun. And yeah, that was very straightforward actually. Let's save our file and refresh our page. And we have our little click me button that does not click. But I already mentioned why, so let's not stress. Right, and our second last element that we'll be working on is a link. So a link, at least that's most clickable. When we click on this link, it will direct us to another page. So let's open up our editor. I was actually lying about the link being the second last element. I forgot we still have lists. So a link is our third last element. So let's create our div. Let's close the div. Now for links, we use a tag called an anchor tag. It's just an A, and we specify where the link needs to go to. So remember, initially, let's go back up. We had our href attribute. So we'll be using the very same attribute to specify the URL of the page you want this link to go to. So we say a href, and now let's just call it, let's go to Google, www dot, actually, no. Let's rather go to W3 Schools, that resource I was telling you guys about. Ooh, what the hell? www.w3schools dot com slash html slash, and then we can give our link a name. So we can call it go to W3 schools to learn more about HTML. That's a bit dramatic, but okay. Let me, yeah. All right, cool. That should work. And let's save our page and restart. And we have a link. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And it takes us to our HTML tutorial where you can learn everything there is to know about HTML. That's pretty cool. Let's add some space though, because it's so nested. Let's add space below our button. And there you go, all the way at the bottom. Now we're dealing with our second, I'm serious now, our second last element, which is a list. We'll be dealing with ordered lists, the ones that go 1, 2, 3, and unordered lists where it's just like bullet points. So let's go back to our text editor. Let's add space. We don't want another nested situation. And have a div. Let's ordered lists. Whoa, there you go. And let's close our div. Let's specify which list is which using our paragraph tag. Let's write ordered list p. We use a tag called OL for ordered list. And that's our parent tag because right beneath it we have our list items. So let me just do this. There you go. And our list items, we use the tag li for one list item. So let's call it, I need animal names. Elephant. Maybe a lion. And horse. Goodness. Right. And we close our ordered list. And let's add a break tag. And we'll be adding our unordered lists. So that's just the bullet ones. And for an unordered list, we use UL. It's very straightforward. And we define our list item with li as well. And oh, what else? The fish. Snake. Tiger. And we close our unordered list. Right, and that's basically it. So let's save our file and let's refresh our page. And we have our ordered list 1, 2, 3, and our unordered list. Yikes, with our bullet points. And now we'll be dealing with the very last element, which is our image. So let's add a break tag. And have a div, give it an ID, image, or picture, or whichever one, div. And for an image, we use a tag called img. And just like the href attribute, we need to define the location of the image. But instead of using href, we'll be using src for source. So let's have image and our source. So we don't have how do I call it? We don't have our image nested in another folder. It's just with the same, or it lies within the same folder of our HTML page. So there's no need for us to specify the directory of the image. So we can just write the image name. And our image name is cookies and JPEG. And again, it's very important to be precise about the image type. So either a PNG or a JPEG or a JPG. You need to be specific with the image type, else if you put in a wrong image type, your image is not going to show. So let's just fix this. There you go. And the space. And let's save our file, and we're going to refresh our page, which I believe this image is going to be so big because we did not apply any size styling to it, but we'll get to that in our next video. Let's refresh our page, and we have our gigantic image. And just like that, we are done creating our very first web page. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you had some fun building your very own web page. If you want to play around with some of, more HTML elements, do visit W3 Schools or Tutorials Point. These are my web dev go-to resources. And keep your eyes open for our next video where we'll be learning more about styling our HTML page.